Welcome to the Italy and Taiwan Exchange podcast, produced by the Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce in Italy. I'm your host, Joe Chang. Here you will hear from entrepreneurs, business leaders, and government representatives who share their insights, experience, and lesson about working across these two countries. If you are exploring new opportunities in Europe, finding local partners, or expanding your business footprint to Italy, you are in the right place. Let's get started with today's Italy and Taiwan Exchange talk. When we talk about Europe's leaders in clean energy and recycling, most of people think of Germany or Nordics. They are the best. But I think people probably didn't realize Italy is actually one of the top performers in the EU for circular economy and waste management, leading in recycling rates and turning waste into energy more efficiently than many of their neighbors. So today we have Carlo and Matteo from Termokimik coming to the show and to share their perspective and experience in this field. Let's welcome Carlo and Matteo.
Buonasera, it's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you to invite us to this podcast.
I know you both are very busy. I really appreciate that you made this time. So first, can you give me a bit introduction about your company and your role?
Sure. Carlo and me work in Termokimik Corporation. It is an Italian company that was founded in 1938. So we have a very, very long history. The company is a private company, and we are based in Milan, that is in the north of Italy. And we are active in mainly three business lines. The air quality control system that deals with all type of flue gas treatment, air quality control, and removal of pollutants. The waste to energy division that deals with the treatment of the waste, the thermal recovery, and any kind of treatment for the waste. And finally, with the water treatment division that provide, let's say, a service for the other business division. We have an internal service for the control and system automation that actually was the first division in Termokimik. Since in 1938, Termokimik was born supplying control system for the Navy. During the years, we differentiated the business, and as of today, we are here. Mentioned. The business model that we follow is mainly APC Turnkey project, especially in the location where we have presence. In far countries, usually we apply different business model like EP, so it means engineering and procurement project, or only engineering and technology transfer. This is, let's say, an overview about Thermo.
Well, thanks for this overview of what Termokimik does. And you are responsible for the waste to energy area, and Carlo is responsible for the CCS, the carbon capture storage solution.
Yes. We are both working in Termokimik since more than 20 years.
Me 13.
And then probably another 20 years to go.
Yes. So you are very expert on Italian job market.
So for some of our listeners who might not be familiar with carbon capture and storage solutions, I want to ask, are they usually used in the industry where they produce lots of pollution?
Yes, the CCS is becoming more important in Europe and all over the world because we start with the renewable, and using the renewable, you have reduced a lot of emission of CO2 and greenhouse gases that are believed to be responsible for the climate changes. But there are in some cases where the CO2 is very difficult to be removed, and where the process cannot be substituted by renewable or other process. For instance, in cement production, or where you have coal firing, and even partly in the waste to energy, because waste to energy has a biogenic part of the fuel that is CO2 neutral, but the other part is from, let's say, it's contributing the CO2 emission. For this system, there is the only way to get the net zero goal, that is the goal for 2050 in Europe, we need to implement the carbon capture and sequestration system. How to do it? It's not so easy because these systems are very, very expensive and they also take a lot of space. In Europe, what we are doing is to introduce a cap and trade approach using the ETS system, that is the emission trade system. That is quite a similar approach to have a market linked to the emissions. So there is a cap on the overall emission of CO2 that can be emitted in Europe. And every company has its own amount that is allowed to emit. And for the excess has to pay. Until the price of the CO2 is relatively low, the company is going to pay. When the price will become high, and that there will be enough forcing, let's say, to force the company to build a CCS system. And how it works today, 24 cost to emit the 1 ton of CO2 in Europe is approximately 60-70 euro. The forecast say that in 6 years, this price could be doubled. And in this case, being at 120, 130 euro per the possibility will make the capacity to do the CCS convenient for quite all the hard to abate system.
So is that correct to say the driver for a company to consider implementing CCS solution is because the cost decision, because the cost they have to pay for the CO2 emission. If there's an alternative, cheaper option to store the CO2 emission, they will consider the CCS solution.
The capture and the storage are linked. When you capture the CO2, then you need to do something with the CO2. And as of today, the best solution is to store in let's say, deep exhausted in caves or in deep saline aquifers and so on. This is the way to capture and to remove the CO2 from the air. The driver is the price that you have to pay for emitting the CO2. This is a price that, let's say, everybody is going to pay to have a better, a cleaner environment. What we see is that today still we are studying a potential solution, but we foresee that in 5-6 years we will be able to install a full capacity system to remove the CO2 from the flue gas and to store it in deep water or in the caves.
Thanks a lot for explaining that. Also, I remember earlier Carlo mentioned that CCS, carbon capture storage, is becoming an important part of the circular economy. Could you help us to understand why CCS plays such a key role and how it fits into the big picture?
Yes. When you talk about circular economy, you are talking about many pieces, many activities that together are able to close a loop. Regarding waste, the European directive says that you must use as much as possible waste because it's a resource, just some material to dispose. So the first step is try to recover material with recycling, so to give a new life to paper, plastic, glass, and so on. But the recycling activities has again material to dispose, and there are some fraction that cannot be recycled. This material can be treated with waste in a waste to energy plant to try to recover the energy that is again in this material. So the first step is recycling and then recover energy, preventing waste from being disposed directly to landfill. Even the incineration residues, such as the bottom ashes, and when you burn waste, you have some ashes that remains. These ashes can be reused, for example, in construction for streets, for example, reducing so the need for new raw materials. So it's about closing a loop, energy, material, and have so cycle.
It really helps us to understand how all these pieces fit together in a circular economy. So I'm really curious about one thing. So Italy has been one of the top performers in the EU when it comes to circular economy and waste management. Things like recycling rates and the number of the things can actually be recycled or reused. And from your perspective, what makes Italy perform so well in this area? And is it because of the technology, the regulation, or maybe any other factor that most of us don't know about?
I think that the first factor is regulation, because emission limit in Italy are from 1,000 lower than the European one because of public acceptance. Because in Italy, population is afraid of waste incineration, because in the past, here waste to energy plants were just combustor, big oven, let's say. And then every flue gases went to atmosphere with high pollutants. Population was against this type of waste treatment, and they were right. So the regulation went from one point to the complete different another, and put a limit very, very strict. This is why in Italy many technologies were developed, and also Termokimik was one of the company that developed flue gas treatment technology that is one of the more evoluted worldwide, because we need to face limits that are lower than in every other country.
Out of my own curiosity, I dug into some numbers. The rate of electricity from the renewable energy in Taiwan is about 11-12%. So it's a lot lower compared to Europe. Like here, Italy is 40%, and I saw other data from like North Europe. It could be like even up to 70 to 90%.
Yes, it's true, but you also need to take into account that in Taiwan you have the leader in production of microchips and electrical components that require a very, very huge amount of electric energy. And these require a lot of power of production. And this is why you can install. It's not so simple to feed such a production process just with the renewable, because renewable there are, and then they can disappear in very few moments, but you need to have a constant power production. What I see as an important trend in Taiwan is that Taiwan is really committing in reducing as much as possible the CO2 emission. And the project that we are following with our partners, CCAT, in the first step in this field. So if you have a limited amount of renewable, but you will remove all the CO2 that you are emitting, the results will be the same.
I think you're right. Industries like semiconductor, they are energy intensive industries. Yeah. And also very good to hear how Taiwan are following the standards, or try to follow the best practice wherever as possible.
Yes, you can say it following. I guess that also you can say that it can be also in the first place in following in getting the best practice.
I know your company also do projects in Taiwan, so could you share a little bit more about that?
It's a very last entry Taiwan for us. Usually we work in Italy, we work abroad. And in Taiwan, it's, let's say, a cooperation that started since 3 years from now. Yes, it's still ongoing because we are working very, very good together. The cooperation is with the carbon capture application technology. That is a new company, and it's on a CCS plant, carbon capture and storage. It's very interesting because it's a pilot plant in Taichung. We are delivering engineering, technology, and procure some key equipment, while the local content, the construction will be done by our partners.
That's really exciting. Speaking of implementing projects in different countries, like you mentioned in Italy, regulations sometimes make it difficult because they might take 5 or 10 years just from the idea to actually the implementation, because the tender, because of planning, because of permission, the time it requires to get the approval. And when you the projects in Italy or when you implement the projects in other countries, how would you say, is it easier outside of Italy or different country presents different challenge?
Yes, every country is different from the other. We can see that in Italy, as you mentioned before, the average time between tender, the time that is between the publication of a tender and the construction and the operation of a waste to energy plant can take up to 10 years. But this is due mainly to political issues. For example, some parties are still against incineration, and if the government party changes, project can be suddenly stopped or delayed. And sometimes is due to public opposition, even when the projects meet the highest environmental standard.
I think in Taiwan we have the similar challenge as people want to use more energy and cheaper, but no one likes to have the waste plant built next to their home or in their backyard. So we often face public objections and many residents complain. In general, public perceptions on these waste plants, even we market it, we think it's clean, safe, but still people, concerned about it.
Yes.
So
In Northern Europe, it's a different story. There are consistent regulation and strong public awareness of this technology, and this has created much more stable environment for long-term planning. Every country has his own story, and every project has his own story, hoping that the one you are following is going ahead.
So in the situation where a project encounter a local regulation challenge, it's a part of the challenge that your company needs to handle it, or it's your clients who need to handle it?
Yeah, I think that regulations can be challenging, but is also driver in our field. On one hand, European legislation clearly promotes a hierarchy where prevention or recycling come first, but recognizes energy recovery from waste as a part of a sustainable system. In addition, the European Commission has also carried out an extensive study to identify the best available techniques for waste incineration and emission levels that can be achieved with the best technical solution available. So this document that is called BREF, waste incineration, that stands for BAT references, is now the reference point for all the European country when setting current and future emission limits. It really pushed the sector toward higher pollutant removal efficiency and a better environmental performance in waste-to-energy plants. So at the end of the day, the European regulation have pushed efficiency in flue gas cleaning and energy recovery. And that's why today plants are much more advanced and environmental friendly than those built even 10 years ago. But on the other hand, the regulatory process can be slow and fragmented, and can put at risk investment and also state-of-the-art project. So while the European vision is oriented to innovation, national and local implementation can slow investment than the construction of this type of plant.
That's a good observation from the investment perspective. I think the risk you mentioned in terms of uncertainty cannot be ignored. If the standard is high in Europe, and does that mean project outside of Europe is easier because maybe the criteria or the regulation is lower, or whether it's a global standard? It doesn't matter where the project is.
Yes, it's always a challenge because maybe in some country you have some technical challenge because of known emission limits, so we have to push on the technical side. And on the other side, maybe there are some projects abroad where that are technically easier, let's say, but from administrative authorization part, it's very complicated.
I know you have done a lot of the project, and also your company has delivered over 300 projects. Which is the project that you are most proud of?
So as you mentioned, we did a lot of successful job and a lot of projects. There are a lot of projects that can be memorable since, as we said before, we at least I'm working for more than 20 years in Termokimik. So if we want to just give our attention to the air quality system, just starting from the most recent are the SCR, that is the selective catalytic reduction. That is the plant that reduces the nitrogen oxide in the flue gas on the gas turbine class H, that are the biggest gas turbine available on the market. And we put in operation 3 of these systems in the last 5 years. It was a very, very important reference for us because as of today, we have more than 40,000 megawatt for SCR plants. If we want to see a little bit in the past, I guess that the Torre Valdaliga fabric filter was very, very important because it was the most efficient fabric filter on coal-fired power plant in Italy when we still had coal-fired plants. And also the flue gas desulfurization that we did in La Spezia. This was, let's say, my first job in Termokimik, so I'd like to mention it because it was a very, very good job. It was a 600 megawatt power plant where we did the flue gas desulfurization. Now I give the speech to Carlo to mention something about the waste to energy because he is the manager of this division. So he knows much better than me. It is the project that we did. For sure, can anticipate that Parona job can be the most representative as of today.
Yes.
You have followed this through for 5 years, right? Tell us more about it.
Yes, Parona project is a huge one. That is a plant in northern Italy. It was the first waste to energy plant I follow personally from the commercial phase up to the commissioning. So that's why it took me 5 years of work, but it was a huge satisfaction to see plant coming to life and performing as I had imagined. This is a 100 thermal megawatt plant, and he's able to treat about 30 tons per hour of industrial and municipal solid waste. And the client asked both for high power output and high environmental performance. And we design a thermal cycle with a gross electrical efficiency higher than 32%, which is really high considering that the average for waste to energy is between 25 and 30%. And regarding flue gas treatment, the emission limit guaranteed were on average 70% lower than the Italian emission limits. So it was a big achievement for Termokimik.
Well, that's a very remarkable achievement, both in scale and in results. What really stands out to me is the spirit behind it, that drive to take on a mission impossible and make it real. It's almost like design a Ferrari engine, but this time it's the power and the precision applied to building a highly efficient, low-emission waste-to-energy plant.
Yes, it's something like this.
So as an EPC contractor, basically you need to orchestrate a solution that's not just satisfying the national policy, but also you need to understand the current technology limits and then try to stretch it. And at the same time, to keep the cost acceptable for the customers. And I can imagine how difficult it can be to try to find the balance of all of this. And at the same time, to innovate, we're staying within all these boundaries.
So, as you say, Termokimik is an EPC contractor that stands for engineering, procurement, and construction. So it means that we design, build, and commissioning complete waste to energy plant. And our role is to bring together technology, engineering, and execution, so our client can get a reliable and efficient facility that can operate during the years, always counting on our technical support. And we deliver several full-scale plants in Italy for municipal and industrial waste. And at the moment, we are building one new incineration line. We are in negotiation phase for other two plants and following opportunities both in Italy and abroad. Peculiarity of our structure is that we use only in-house personnel for the supervision and direction, so we can directly control all site activities and promptly solve any possible issue. In addition, we have our own testing facility where we can simulate and test the overall automation system before the equipment are installed on site. So that means fewer problems on site and thus time and cost saving. So it's not common for a company of about 100 employees to have this kind of setup because we are a medium-sized company, but we are able to handle complex projects thanks to our knowledge of waste incineration and flue gas treatment technologies and our know-how, because we have proprietary technology of flue gas treatment. And this gives us flexibility and quick reaction time to condition changing, because every country, every client are different, has different needs, and our job is to understand these needs and so adapt technology, emission performance, cost structure in accordance. It's complex work, but is challenging and give us satisfaction.
Thank you. That really gave us a clear picture of what Termokimik does and how your team operates. I think it's evident how passionate you are about your work, and it really comes through in the way you talk about it. I can see that you are full of the passions, with the work that you do.
We try to stay passionate.
And you mentioned that although your company only has about 100 people, you can handle quite complex international projects. Are there typical implementation model where working on overseas projects with a local client or local supplier?
When we go abroad, we discussed before, usually we supply engineering and the key equipment, and we also have some technicians in Termokimik that take care about the site activities and the construction. And this is, let's say, a trend point for us, because these people are all Termokimik employee, and it's really important to have some that is working for Termokimik going to the site, because then we have a very precise feedback, so we can enrich our skills and our experience. Usually, you say you are right when you say that there is a project are complex, complicated. But of course, it is always, let's say, that the numbers are always the same, and the technicians are able to understand each other's. And so first of all, we try to establish a very, very clear way of communication with our local partners, like we are doing with the CCAT in Taiwan, of course. And this is the most important part. Once we have established this communication system, then everything became smoother and, let's say, easier. Then, of course, each project has its own difficulties, but when you work as a partner, it's always simple to find a good solution. The most valuable, I guess, there is not only one, but if we want to have just a similarity, we can say that Termokimik is like a tailor. So we are really very good in designing the plant as the customer wants and needs. And this is really important, because we are never doing a standard plant, standard supply, but we always adapt to the situation, to the will of the customer. This is the first, let's say, strength point. And the other point that is really important is that we are an EPC company, but not a general EPC company, but an EPC focused on technology. What we offer is usually it's a technology that we own, that we well know, and on which we are quite sure to be in the best company worldwide applying that kind of technology. This applies for flue gas treatment, this applies for waste to energy. So we want to offer technical plus to our customer. This is why the customer then come back to us.
Thank you, Matteo and Carlo, for sharing your expertise and giving us such a clear look into Termokimik's work. It has been a real pleasure having you two on our show. And to our listeners, I hope today's conversation helped you understand more about the waste to energy, circular economy, and the CCS, the carbon capture and storage solutions, and that altogether help us to achieve a cleaner future. So Matteo and Carlo, thanks again for joining us. We look forward to seeing more of Termokimik's groundbreaking projects in the future.
Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. If there are any topics or industries you would like us to cover in the future, feel free to leave a comment. We would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.